Hi, I'm Brad Simpson with Simpson Limited Collector Firearms, and today I'd like to talk about the 1900 DWM American Eagle Luger U.S. test trials. Now, these were one of the first issued automatic pistols by any country, and they were actually issued in the U.S. before the Germans started using them in late 1901. So, the U.S. issued about 1,000 of them to troops mainly in the Philippines and Cuba, and they were a very historic pistol. Let's take a closer look. The first characteristic of 1900 U.S. test trials Lugers is the serial number. There were 1,000 guns between 6100 and 7100. As you can see, this one is 6151, which is one of the lowest numbers known. Another characteristic, the commercial guns would have Germany export stamp, usually below the serial number. That was required by law for firearms manufactured outside the United States. They had to have the country of origin. Since this was imported for military issue, it didn't require that. And also, it doesn't have the commercial proofs that you will see, usually capital B-U-G, on the early 1900 Lugers. Again, since it was imported for military issue, it did not require commercial proofs. Another characteristic, for whatever reason, these guns have the serial number on the takedown lever on the right side, as opposed to the commercial guns, which will have it on the bottom of the takedown lever on the left side. Another characteristic, the magazine will have what's called a flaming bomb proof. Even though it's not really a U.S. flaming bomb, it looks like one, and it's gotten that name over the years, and it's appropriate for this model. Other than those characteristics, it's a pretty typical DWM 1900 American Eagle. You can see the American Eagle, which was really a marketing tool that George Luger came up with. The Swiss liked the cross on the chamber of their Lugers, and so he put the American Eagle on this contract. And of course, later with the commercial guns, he also put it on the commercial guns as a marketing tool to sell them better in the United States. Of course, these guns were tested by the U.S. military, actually issued and used. So many of them are in really rough condition, and not all of them survived the tests. This happens to be one of the nicest ones we've ever seen. Now, the soldiers that were issued these guns were used to using revolvers that were either 38 caliber or 45 caliber. Now, this gun was a lot more complicated, less reliable, as it was likely to jam or get dirty, and also it was a smaller caliber. So the big complaints with the 1,000 that were issued were those things. The caliber was too small, they were more difficult to learn how to use, and not as reliable. So of course, a couple years, 3 years later, Luger provided 50 9mm guns for test, and those were the ones that had the Powell indicating device on the grip, which was called the cartridge counter. And then again in 1907, he actually provided 3 45 caliber guns for test, because the U.S. had decided they wanted 45 caliber, and of course they ultimately went with the Colt 1911 designed by John Browning. So now you've seen how to identify these guns. There were 1,000 of them in late 1901 that were delivered to Springfield Armory, and they were imported by Hans Tauscher, who was the importer at the time. They cost $14.75 each in 1901, and the original magazines were 88 cents each. Each gun had an extra magazine, and then Rock Island Arsenal made holsters for them, which I've done another video on. One of the things that's interesting about the holsters, Rock Island had been making holsters for revolvers and didn't have the forethought to include a pocket for the extra magazine, even though each gun was ordered with an extra magazine. If you have any more questions about this or other Lugers, or have an idea for a video, send me an email at brad@simpsonltd.com. Thank you.